Okay, we're getting set. Ready. Camera, lights. Good. And action. There we go. Okay, good to see everybody. Only 13 people so far. It's an auspicious number. And so we'll start by chanting Jai Radhamadva, and we're going to go back to the Nectar devotion today. Yesterday we did the first part of the Braj Mando Parikrama. And if any of you are interested in seeing that, it is on my YouTube channel. And every week we're going to do one more segment during this Kartik time of the Braj Mando Parikrama. So, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Gopi Jana Ballabha Giri Bharadhati Gopi Jana Ballabha Giri Bharadhati Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Gopi Jana Malabha Kiri Bharat Ahuti Gopi Jana Bhallabha Giri Bharadhate Yashoda Dandana Marajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Marajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravatikacharya Suteta Sitashi Shimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Chatana, the Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Goti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Param Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Sham Kun Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Mathuraam Ki Jai Jagannath Swami Ki Jai Munamai Ki Jai Shrimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Gaur. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Gaur. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Budle Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharini Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschachat Deja Tarni. So Om Ganat Timidandasha Garanjana Shlakaya Chakshuram Meditam. Yena Tasmai Shigurave Namaha. So I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet, my spiritual master, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada so kindly opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. So to start the Nectar devotion, we cite this one verse by Rupa Goswami, by Srinivasacharya actually. Nana Shastra Vicharanaika Nipano Sadharma Samstapako Lokanam Itakarano Tribhuvane Manyo Shadhanyakaro Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajana Nandena Mataliko Bande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyago Shri Jiva Gopal Lakho. Okay, and the translation is as follows. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the six Goswamis, namely Sri Sanatana Goswami, Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Sri Raghunath Dasa Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, and Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus they are honored all over the three worlds, and they are worth taking shelter of because they are absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Radha and Krishna. Okay, so now we're going to go on to the Nectar devotion, and I believe this chapter is called Stimulations for Ecstatic Love. Let us go, or Stimulation for Ecstatic Love. Let us go to share the screen. So this is chapter 26 of the Nectar devotion. And just to reiterate what we've gone over before, just so you will remember. We talked about something called bhavas. This whole section of the Nectar devotion is about bhavas, or emotions. And the first type of bhava is the vibhava, that which stimulates the rest of the emotions, the anubhava, the emotions that follow, like jumping up and down and dancing. Then the sattviga bhava, the constitutional ecstasies, the vyabhachari bhavas, the intermittent ecstasies that come without any warning, you can't control them, and finally the sthaya bhava, the ecstasies that are connected with your relationship with Krishna, whether it is dasharas, satyaras, vatsalyaras, madhuryaras, or chantaras. I love that, chantaras, of course. So let's continue. This chapter is called Stimulation for Ecstatic Love. And of course, this again is another way of stating vibhava, that which stimulates your ecstasy. And remember, vibhava has two categories, alambana and udipana. I know I'm repeating myself, but practically no one will remember this anyway. Alambana means directly Krishna. Udipana means things connected to Krishna, like a peacock feather, his flute, etc. Okay, so stimulation for ecstatic love. Some things which give impetus or stimulation to ecstatic love of Krishna are his transcendental qualities, his uncommon activities, and we heard about his qualities before, some of his activities, his smiling features, his apparel, means what he wears, and garlands, his flute, his buffalo horn, his leg bells, his conch shell, his footprints, his place of pastimes, such as Vrindavan, his favorite plant, tulasi, his devotee, and the periodical occasions for remembering him. One such occasion for remembrance is Ekadashi, which comes twice a month on the 11th day of the moon, both waning and waxing. On that day, all the devotees remain fasting throughout the night and continuously chant the glories of the Lord. I guess I should explain that. So the moon has two cycles in each month. One is the waning moon, one is the waxing moon. And the waning moon is called the Gora Paksha. It means the Gora. Anyway, no, actually the waxing moon is called the Gora Paksha. And the other half is the waning moon, which is the Krishna Paksha. Sorry, because Krishna is dark and Gora is light. So I got that reversed. So anyway, those are the two halves, and the 11th day of each half after either the Purnima or the Amavas. Oh my God, there's another word for you. Purnima means full moon. Amavas means no moon or new moon. The 11th day is called the Ekadashi, and that's a special day for remembering Krishna. And here Prabhupada says, all the devotees remain fasting throughout the night and continuously chant the glories of the Lord. So that is done if the devotees have nothing else to do with their lives. If they have other activities such as doing things in this world, like making a living, or preaching Krishna consciousness, or doing deity service, or any one of a number of things, then fasting through the night and continuously chanting the glories of the Lord is not required. In fact, Prabhupada, in my remembrance, he never fasted on Ekadashi except for from grains and beans. He fasted from grains and beans, and that's it. Otherwise, he arranged for special Ekadashi prasadam, and he preached with full intensity on those days, and Prabhupada didn't stay awake throughout the night. Prabhupada would stick to his normal schedule, basically waking up at 2 in the morning to write his literatures. Anyway, so these things can be adjusted according to time, place, and circumstance. Generally, I find devotees who stay up all night long and chant, they cannot do anything the next day, and they sleep the whole next day, so it's not a very good procedure. If you can do your regular service the next day without spacing out, crashing your car, or doing something like that, then it's okay, or without hurting your health. It's okay, stay up all night. But the whole point of Ekadashi is to increase your hearing and chanting of Krishna, not simply to stay up and fast. I had one friend who would always stay up and fast on Ekadashi, and the way he did it was that he would invest in the stock market all night long. He would buy and sell things, and that got him really excited, and that's not the way to commemorate or celebrate Ekadashi. So, okay, now we're going to hear about some of the other or elaborations on the qualities of Krishna or the things connected to Krishna which stimulate ecstatic love. Krishna's transcendental qualities, his uncommon activities, and his smile. It's interesting when you say the word smile. You naturally smile. It's interesting how these words are connected with what they actually are. As far as Krishna's transcendental qualities are concerned, they can be divided into three groups. Qualities pertaining to his transcendental body, qualities pertaining to his transcendental speech, and qualities pertaining to his transcendental mind. Krishna's age, his transcendental bodily features, his beauty, and his mildness are qualities pertaining to his body. There is no difference between Krishna and his body, and therefore the transcendental features pertaining to his body are the same as Krishna himself. But because these qualities stimulate the devotee's ecstatic love, they have been analyzed as separate causes of that love. To be attracted by the qualities of Krishna means to be attracted by Krishna himself, because there's no real distinction between Krishna and his qualities. Krishna's name is also Krishna. Krishna's fame is also Krishna. Krishna's entourage is also Krishna. Entourage means the people who are with him. That's a big word for most of you. Krishna and everything related with Krishna which gives stimulation to love of Krishna are all Krishna, but for our understanding, these items may be considered separately. In other words, we, in this world, when we have a material body, our bodily features and qualities that we exhibit, unless they're transcendental qualities, they are different from us. So we can't say that my smile is the same as me. Or the qualities, we know from the Bhagavad Gita that the qualities that someone exhibits are usually due to a certain extent or fully to the influence of the modes of material nature. That's why we say that if someone is not Krishna conscious, then all of his qualities are simply all of his good qualities are simply something like a mental concoction, because they're due to the modes of nature. They're not his qualities, they're the qualities that are manifest due to his contact with the modes of nature. Karanam guna sangasha, sadasad janma jonishu. Okay, but Krishna is not like that. Krishna and his body are the same. Krishna's fame is also Krishna. Krishna's name is also Krishna. Prabhupada states this. Krishna is the reservoir of all transcendental pleasure. Therefore, the impetus is to love of Krishna. And these are vibhavas, remember? Vibhava, impetus. Although seemingly different, are not actually distinct from Krishna. In the technical Sanskrit terms, such qualities as Krishna's name and fame are accepted both as reservoirs of and stimulation for love of Krishna. In other words, Krishna's name and fame, being non-different from Krishna, are ecstatic. They contain bliss and they stimulate bliss, just to put it in plain language. Krishna's age is considered in 3 periods. From his appearance day to the end of his 5th year is called Kumara. From the beginning of the 6th year up to the end of the 10th year is called Puganda. And from the 11th to the end of the 15th year is called Kaishora. After the beginning of the 16th year, Krishna is called Yovana, or a youth, and this continues with no change. So I just want to explain something to you. When Krishna exhibits these different features at different ages, obviously, at the first age, Kumara, he's kind of small. And after that, Poganda gets bigger, and Kaishora bigger, and different features appear on his body, like starts to grow facial hair, things like that. So it's not due to the actions of the material nature, like the growth of our body. Our body, the manifestations of the growth of our body are due to different things like hormones and all sorts of interactions within the cellular structure of our body. But Krishna's body is not like that. It's transcendental, and he manifests it in different ages for the pleasure and interaction with his devotees, like us. As far as Krishna's transcendental pastimes are concerned, they are mostly executed during the Kumara, Poganda, and Kaishora period. His affectionate pastimes with his parents are executed during the Kumara age, that means, 5 years old. His friendship with the cowherd boys exhibited during the Poganda period, and his friendship with the gopis is exhibited during the age of Kaishora. Krishna's pastimes at Vrindavan are finished by the end of his 15th year, when he's 16. And then he is transferred to Mathura and Dwarka, where all other pastimes are performed. So transferred is an interesting word. He goes to Mathura and Dwarka. So, Srila Rupa Goswami gives us a vivid description of Krishna as the reservoir of all pleasure in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Here are some parts of that description. Krishna's Kaishora age may be divided into 3 parts. In the beginning of his Kaishora age, that is, at the beginning of his 11th year, the luster of his body becomes so bright that it becomes an impetus for ecstatic love. Similarly, there are reddish borders around his eyes and a growth of soft hairs on his body. In describing this early stage of his Kaishora age, Kundalata, one of the residents of Vrindavan, actually Krishna's cousin too, said to her friend, she's actually the daughter of one of Nanda Maharaj's brothers, I think it was Upananda, said to her friend, it's ecstatic to remember these personalities. My dear friend, I have just seen an extraordinary beauty appearing in the person of Krishna. His blackish bodily hue appears just like the Indra Nila jewel. There are reddish signs on his eyes and small soft hairs are coming out of his body. The appearance of these symptoms has made him extraordinarily beautiful. In this connection, in the 10th canto, 21st chapter, verse 5 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami tells King Parikshit, my dear king, I shall try to describe how the minds of the gopis become absorbed in thought of Krishna. The gopis would meditate on Krishna's dressing himself just like a dancing actor and entering the forest of Vrindavan, marking the ground with his footprints. They meditated on Krishna's having a helmet with a peacock feather and wearing earrings on his ears and yellow gold-colored garments covered with jewels and pearls. They also meditated on Krishna's blowing his flute and all the cowherd boys singing of the glories of the Lord. That is the description of the meditation which the gopis used to perform. Sometimes the gopis would think about his soft nails, his moving eyebrows, and his teeth, which were kapichu colored from chewing pan, like a dark reddish color. One description was given by a gopi to her friend. My dear friend, just see how the enemy of Aga, that means the Agasura demon, serpent, has assumed such wonderful features. His brows are just like the brows of Cupid, and they are moving just as though they were dancing. The tips of his nails are so soft, it is as if they were dried bamboo leaves. His teeth are reddish, and so it appears that he has assumed a feature of anger. Under the circumstances, where's the chance for a young girl not to be attracted by such beautiful features and not to be afraid of becoming a victim to such beauty? Krishna's attractive features are also described by Brinda, the gopi after whom Vrindavana was named. She's also in charge of the forest and all the setting scenes for Krishna's pastimes. She told Krishna, my dear Madhava, your newly invented smile has so captivated the hearts of the gopis that they simply are unable to express themselves. As such, they have become bewildered and will not talk with others. All these gopis have become so affected, it is as if they had offered 3 sprinkles of water upon their lives. In other words, they have given up all hope for their living condition. According to the Indian system, when a person is dead, there's a sprinkling of water on the body. Thus, the statement of Brinda shows that the gopis were so enchanted by the beauty of Krishna that because they could not express their minds, they had decided to commit suicide. Wow. So these are other expressions. So not only do you have the Vibhava there, but you have, this is a Vyabhichari Bhava, which is, actually it's good if I explain all the different bhavas that are happening here. The Vibhava, the stimulation for ecstatic love. The Vyabhichari Bhava is the gopis are just like dying, basically. There's 33 of those, and one of those is just about death. Not real death, but for all intents and purposes, one almost leaves his body or her body. When Krishna arrived at the age of 13 to 14 years, his 2 arms and chest assumed an unspeakable beauty, and his whole form became simply enchanting. When Krishna attained 13 years of age, his 2 thighs were challenging the trunks of elephants, his rising chest was trying to come to the peace talks with the doors of jewels, and his 2 arms were minimizing the value of bolts found on doors. Who can describe the wonderful beauty of these features of Krishna? The special beauty of Krishna's body was his mild smiling, his restless eyes, and his world-enchanting songs. These are the special features of this age. There's a statement in this connection that Krishna, on arriving at this age, manifested such beautiful bodily features that his restless eyes became the playthings of Cupid, and his mild smile resembled the newly grown lotus flower. The enchanting vibration of his songs became a great impediment to the young girls who were supposed to remain chaste and faithful to their husbands. At this age, Krishna enjoyed the Rasa Leela, exhibiting his power of joking with the cowherd girls and enjoying their company in the bushes of the gardens by the bank of the Yamuna. That's Kunji Bihari. In this connection, there's the following statement. Throughout the whole tract of land known as Vrindavana, there were the footprints of Krishna and the gopis, in some places peacock feathered Krishna and the gopis, and in some places peacock feathers were strewn about. In some places there were nice beddings in the bushes of Vrindavan gardens, and in some places there were piles of dust due to the group dancing of Govinda and the gopis. These are some of the features which are due to the different pastimes invented by Sri Krishna in the place known as Vrindavana. There's the following statement by one gopi describing Krishna's attractive feature during this age. My dear friend, just see how all of a sudden in the sky of Krishna there is a powerful rising sun, and how this rising sun is minimizing the rays of our chastity moon. Our attraction for Krishna is so intense that it is drying up the lotus flower of our discrimination. Now, of course, that's another Vyabhichari Bhava. So Krishna's attraction, that's Vibhava. Vyabhichari Bhava is the drying up the lotus flower. In other words, losing discrimination. And we are losing our senses, another one, in deciding whether we shall continue as chaste women or be victimized by the beauty of Krishna. My dear friend, I think that we have lost all hope of life, hopelessness. That's Avyabhachari Bhava also. In the Kaishora age, beginning from the 11th year and continuing up to the end of the 15th year, Krishna's arms, legs, and thighs become marked with 3 divisional lines. At that time, Krishna's chest challenged the hill of Marakata jewels. His arms challenged pillars of the Indranila jewel. The 3 lines of his waist challenged the waves of the river Yamuna, and his thighs challenged beautiful bananas. One gopi said, with all these exquisite features of his body, Krishna is too extraordinarily beautiful, and therefore I'm always thinking of him to protect me because he is the killer of all demons. So this is, she's always thinking of him to protect him. It's almost like a Sattvika Bhava, constitutional ecstasy. A Vibhava, connected with the constitutional ecstasy. The idea expressed in this statement is that the gopis were comparing their attraction for Krishna to an attack by demons. And to counteract their attraction for the beauty of Krishna, they were also turning to Krishna, hopefully because he's the killer of all kinds of demons. In other words, they were perplexed because on one hand they were attracted by the beauty of Krishna, and on the other hand they needed Krishna to drive away the demon of attraction. It's called madness, which is actually Vyabhachari Bhava, intermittent. There's 33 of them, 33 categories, and much variety in each one of those 33 categories. And we're going to get more explicit about those categories later on in the Nectar Devotion study group. So anyway, so this Kaishora age can be translated as adolescence. At the end of this period, all the gopis said, Krishna is the killer, the attraction of Cupid, and as such he disturbs the patience of all newly married girls. That's why Krishna is called Madan Mohan. Madan Mohan means the attractor of Madan, who is Cupid. And so in other words, if you become attracted to Krishna, then you won't be attracted to anything that Cupid does, such as firing his arrows at you, or form, taste, smell, etc., like that, and you'll never fall in love. Sorry about that. Krishna's bodily features have become so exquisite, it is as if they were all manifesting an artistic sense of the highest sort. His dancing eyes have dimmed the brilliance of the most expert dancer, and so there is no longer any comparison to the beauty of Krishna. Learned scholars therefore describe the features of his body at this time as Nava Yovana, newly invented youthfulness. At this stage of Krishna's bodily features, the conjugal love affairs with the gopis and similar pastimes become prominent. There are 6 features of conjugal love affairs called 1. Peacemaking, 2. Picking a quarrel, 3. Going to meet one's lover, 4. Sitting together, separation, and support. Lord Krishna expanded an empire of these 6 features, of which he was the ruling prince. Somewhere he was picking quarrels with the young girls. Somewhere he was scratching them with the nails of parrots. Somewhere he was busy going to visit the gopis, and somewhere he was negotiating through coward friends to take shelter of the gopis. In other words, Krishna was doing unlimited things simultaneously, just like Krishna is in everyone's heart, and he's in everyone's heart and observing different things simultaneously. Krishna is exhibiting his forms at different incarnations or avatars, expansions, all simultaneously. Some of the gopis addressed him thus, Dear Krishna, because of your adolescent age, you have just become the spiritual master of these young girls, and you are teaching them to whisper among themselves. You are teaching them to offer solemn prayers, as well as training them to cheat their husbands and join you in the gardens at night, without caring for the instructions of their superiors. You are enthusing them by the vibration of your enchanting flute, and as their teacher, you are teaching them all the intricacies of loving affairs. It is said that even when Krishna was a boy of 5, he manifested such youthful energies, but learned scholars do not explain them because of the absence of suitable age. Now, I'll make an attempt to explain it. Oh my God. That even though it wasn't suitable at that particular age, when Krishna entered into these particular relationships, he manifested a different age and then went back to his original age. I mean, that's explained by the acharyas. And, of course, none of us can do that, just like I'm old age. Yeah. What's that verse in the Gita? Komaram Jyotam Jara. Jara. I'm Jara, so, or this body is Jara. So if I if I could, I would just manifest my youthfulness when I needed to, my middle age when I need to, my old age when I wanted people to pay attention to me and respect me for being old. So Krishna could do that. Well, of course, he never had an old age. 16 was it. After 16, he looked 16 for the rest of the time he was on this planet. Krishna was beautiful because every part of his body was perfectly arranged without any defect. Such perfect bodily features of Krishna are described as follows. My dear enemy of Kamsa, your broad eyes, your rising chest, your two pillar-like arms, and your thin middle portion of your body is always enchanting to every lotus-eyed beautiful girl. The ornaments on the body of Krishna were not actually enhancing his beauty, but just the reverse. The ornaments were beautified by Krishna. A person is called mild when he cannot even bear the touch of the most soft thing. It is described that every part of Krishna's body was so soft that even at the touch of a newly grown leaves, the color of the touch part of his skin would change. At this Kaishora age, Krishna's endeavors were always bent toward arranging the rasa dance as well as toward killing the demons in the forest of Vrindavan. While Krishna was engaged in enjoyment with the boys and girls within the forest of Vrindavan, Kamsa used to send his associates to kill Krishna, and Krishna would show his prowess by killing them. And those stories are in the Krishna book. Actually, there are unlimited demons. We read about a few demons, but practically every few hours or every day there were many, 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 many demons. Generally, there are 4 kinds of garments on the body of Krishna: his shirt, his turban, his belt, and wearing garments. Means the lower portion. In Vrindavan, he used to put on reddish garments with a golden shirt on his body. Wow. And an orange-colored turban on his head. Wow. So red on the bottom, yellow or gold on the shirt, and orange-colored turban on his head. So actually, the devotee should do that when they're dressing the deities. Because generally, you think Krishna's always wearing a yellow dhoti. It's called pitambara. But actually, he used to sometimes put on reddish garments. In other words, reddish, like pants. I don't know if you call it a dhoti, but pants with certain folds, and a yellow shirt, and orange-colored turban. Someone should tell the pujaris about this immediately. That's an order. The different kinds of belts combined with his enchanting smile used to always increase the transcendental bliss of his associates. The dress of Krishna is described as gorgeous, as a baby elephant is sometimes dressed in colorful clothing. They do that in festivals in India. I know it's hard to understand. So Krishna's gorgeousness was manifested by decoration with such colorful clothing on the different parts of his body. A kalpa refers to the texture of Krishna's hair. His nicely dressed body anointed with sandalwood pulp and decorated with flower garlands, his tilak and his chewing pan. Krishna was decorated constantly in this akalpa process. Krishna's hair was sometimes decorated with flowers placed in the middle of his head, or else it was reaching down to his back. In this way, Krishna dressed his hair differently at different times. As for the ointment on his body, the pulp of sandalwood generally appeared to be white, and when it was mixed with saffron dye, it appeared to be yellow. Krishna used to put a Vaijayanti garland around his neck. This Vaijayanti garland is made of flowers of at least 5 different colors. Such a garland was always long enough to touch Krishna's knees or feet. Remember that, pujaris. Of course, there's other garlands too. It's not that every garland has to touch Krishna's feet. But when it touches Krishna's feet, it's known as a Vaijayanti garland. Besides this garland of flowers, there were other kinds of flower garlands too, sometimes decorating his head, sometimes hanging around his neck and chest. Artistic paintings with sandalwood pulp and colored sandalwood were also to be found on the body of Krishna. We do that with the deities too. One gopi addressed her friend and began to praise the bodily features of Krishna. She praised his blackish complexion, the reddish color of chewing pan, enhancing his beauty hundreds of times, the curling hair on his head, the kumkum red spots on his body, and the tilak on his forehead. His helmet, his earrings, his necklace, his 4 garments, the bangles on his head, the rings on his fingers. Wow. His ankle bells and his flute, these are all the different features of Krishna's ornaments. Krishna, The enemy of Aga always looked beautiful with his incomparable helmet, his earrings made of diamonds, his necklace of pearls, his bangles, his embroidered garments, and the beautiful rings on his fingers. Krishna is sometimes called Vanamali. Vana means forest, and Mali means gardener. So Vanamali refers to one who extensively uses flowers and garlands on different parts of his body. Krishna was dressed like this not only in Vrindavan, but also on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Seeing such colorful dress and the garlands of different flowers, some great sages prayed, Lord Krishna was going to the battlefield of Kurukshetra, not to fight, but to grace all the devotees with his presence. So, actually, there's an interesting story about Vanamali. This happened around the place Govardhan called Kushama Sarovara. Krishna was dressed up as a gardener, and the gopis came, and they were picking flowers, and Krishna just argued with them and demanded that they pay to pick his flowers, and was fighting back and forth between Krishna and the gopis. And one time, Radharani was picking flowers from a tree, and Krishna was up in the tree, and she was bending a little branch down to pick flowers from the tree, holding on to the branch, and Krishna was holding down that branch, sight unseen, by his weight inside the tree, and then he jumped down from the tree, and Radharani flew into the air, and Krishna on the ground said, "I'll catch you," and she got upset with him. Anyway, so many pastimes occurred when Krishna was Vanamali, an actual gardener. Krishna's flute. As far as his flute is concerned, it is said that the vibration of this wonderful instrument was able to break the meditation of the greatest sages. Krishna was thus challenging Cupid by advertising his transcendental glories all over the world. Pretty wonderful. There are three kinds of flutes used by Krishna. One is called Venu, one is called Murali, and the third is called Vamshi. Venu was very small. We talked about this in Bhagavatam class a little while ago. Venu was very small, not more than 6 inches long, with 6 holes for whistling. Murali is about 18 inches long, with a hole at the end and 4 holes on the body of the flute. This kind of flute produces a very enchanting sound. The Vamshi flute is about 15 inches long with 9 holes on the body. Krishna used to play on these 3 flutes occasionally when they were needed. Krishna has a longer Vamshi, which is called the Mahananda, or Samohini. That means the flute that completely bewilders you. When it is still longer, they're called the Karshini. When it is even longer, it is called Anandini. The Anandini flute is very pleasing to the cowherd boys and is technically called Vamshuli. These flutes were sometimes bedecked with jewels, sometimes they were made of marble, and sometimes of hollow bamboo. When the flute is made of jewels, it is called Samohini. When made of gold, it is called Akarshini. So the flute, getting back to the original explanation we were given at the beginning of the chapter and the beginning of the section, is a vibhava, but it's 2 kinds of vibhavas. One is directly Krishna, the other one is things connected to Krishna. It's the second type of vibhava is called an udipana. Alambana means directly Krishna. Udipana means things connected to Krishna, or things that remind you of Krishna. Next one is Krishna's buffalo horn. Krishna used the buffalo horn as a bugling instrument. This instrument was always highly polished and encircled with gold bands, and on the middle there was a hole. Regarding these instruments, there is a metaphorical statement about a gopi named Taravali. It is said that Taravali was bitten by the most venomous snake of Krishna's flute. Then, in order to neutralize the poisonous effect, she drank the milk produced by the buffalo horn in the hand of Krishna. But instead of decreasing the poisonous effect, it increased it 1,000 times. The gopi was thus put into the most miserable poison condition. So again, we have the vibhava, the undipana, which is the buffalo horn and the flute, and then the vyabhachari bhava, which is actually, like a poisonous effect, almost dying, most miserable condition. So anyway, this is to help you understand the science of bhavas, or emotions. A certain gopi once stated to her friend, because even in this world, let me interrupt for a second, even in this world, we do have things that stimulate our emotions. For example, a mother sometimes has a baby. She's a mother. She must have a baby at a certain point. maybe the baby's not baby anymore, but even if the baby's grown up, then the child is always the baby of the mother. But anyway, let's say a mother with a baby, if the mother sees the baby and she becomes ecstatic, that's a lambana that stimulates her love. And if she's the baby's little shoes, that's an udipana. It's not the baby directly, but something connected to the baby. Just like my mother bronzed my shoe, my baby's shoes, and put them on the altar. A certain gopi, the attraction of Krishna's leg bells. A certain gopi once stated to her friend, "My dear friend, when I heard the sound of the leg bells of Sri Krishna, I immediately started to go out of the house to see him. But most regrettably, my superiors were present just before me at that time, and I could not go out." So here, you have the stimulation of the sound of the leg bells of Krishna, which is the Nudipana, not directly Krishna, but the sound of the leg bells. And you have, let's say, this is not a Sanchari Bhava, this is Anubhava. This is an Anubhava, because she started to go out of the house to see him. That's a voluntary motion, and she stopped. If it was a Vyabhachari Bhava, they wouldn't have been able to stop her. So Krishna's conch shell. Krishna's conch shell is known as Panchajanya. This Panchajanya conch is also mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna sounded it before the battle of Kurukshetra. It is said that when Lord Krishna blows on his transcendental conch shell, the wives of the demons become subject to abortions, and the wives of the demigods become blessed with all auspiciousness. So that's a vibhava. In this way, the sound of Krishna's conch shell used to vibrate and circulate all over the world. I wouldn't say the wives of the demons having abortions was an ecstatic emotion. I guess it was fear. You might say it's a type of ecstatic emotion, but fear. Krishna's footprints, because they knew their kids were going to get killed by Krishna. It is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam that when Krishna's footprints, when a Krura who drove Krishna from Vrindavan to Mathura saw the footprints of Krishna in the land of Vrindavan, his ecstatic love for Krishna increased so much that the hairs on his body stood up. His eyes became overflooded with tears, and in such ecstasy he jumped out of the chariot and fell down on the ground and began to chant, "How wonderful this is, how wonderful this is." So what you're hearing is Anubhava that's stimulated by the footprints of Krishna, which are Nudipana. So by giving these examples, you understand the nomenclature. Not directly Krishna, things connected with Krishna. Anubhava is an emotion that follows. Similar feelings were expressed by the gopis when they were going to the bank of the Yamuna and saw Krishna's footprints in the dust. When Krishna walked on the ground of Vrindavan, the marks of his soul, flag, thunderbolt, fish, a rod for controlling elephants, and a lotus flower would be imprinted upon the dust of the land. The gopis became overwhelmed simply by seeing those marks on the ground. So that would be Sanchari or Vyabhachari Bhava. It means uncontrolled ecstasy. It's not a voluntary action being overwhelmed. Krishna's places of pastimes. One devotee has exclaimed, "Oh, I have not as yet visited the wonderful places where the pastimes of the Lord were performed, but simply by hearing the name of Mathura, I have become overwhelmed with joy." So just like yesterday, we were showing a slideshow of some of the places in Braj, and it was very, very joyful. So those of you who are fortunate will get a chance to go on Braj Mando Parikrama, hopefully with me, if Krishna desires. Krishna's favorite plant, tulasi. Lord Krishna is very fond of tulasi leaves and buds, because tulasi buds are usually offered up to the lotus feet of Krishna. A devotee once prayed to the tulasi buds to give him some information about the lotus feet of the Lord. The devotee expected that tulasi buds would know something about the glories of Krishna's lotus feet. So, of course, that's the vibhava, which is the tulsi leaves, which is an udipana, again, and this is an anubhava, his voluntary action upon seeing tulsi. And actually, this is how we should feel when we see tulsi. Krishna's devotees. One may sometimes become overwhelmed with joy. So these are different stimulations. These are different vibhavas. And generally, these are udipanas being described now. One may sometimes become overwhelmed with joy by seeing a devotee of the Lord. When Dhruva Maharaj saw two associates of Narayan approaching him, he immediately stood up out of sincere respect and devotion, remained before them with folded hands. but because of his ecstatic love, he could hardly offer them a proper reception. So let's see what that would be. So the devotee was Nudipana, and that would probably be an Anubhava, yeah. There's a statement by a gopi who addressed Subal, a friend of Krishna. My dear Subal, I know that Krishna is your friend and that you always enjoy smiling and joking with him. That would be great to joke with Krishna. The other day I saw you both standing together. You were keeping your hand upon Krishna's shoulder, and both of you were joyfully smiling. When I saw the two of you standing like that in the distance, my eyes at once became overflooded with tears. So that's seeing Krishna and his devotee. So that's a combination of Alambana and Udipana, directly Krishna, things related with Krishna, and Anubhava. Special days remembering Krishna. There are many statements about festive days in connection with Krishna's different activities. One of these festive days is Janmashtami, the day of Krishna's birth. This Janmashtami day is the most opulent festival day for the devotees and is still observed with great pomp in every Hindu house in India. Sometimes even the devotees of other religious groups take advantage of this auspicious day and enjoy performances. Enjoy the performance of the ceremony of Janmashtami. Ecstatic love for Krishna is aroused on the days of Ekadashi, which are other festive days in connection with Krishna. Okay. I guess we should start the next chapter. Let's see. I'd like to start it tomorrow. Maybe we'll end a little early. We'll take some questions now. Yeah, because we always have a lot of questions. Because this is important. The next chapter is actually about Anubhava, the symptoms of ecstatic love that follow the stimulation. Okay, let us take some questions now. All right, give me 1 second to unmute you. Whoops, I didn't unmute you yet. Okay. Who, make sure you can speak to me. All right, who wants to ask a question? I think we had, Sunil Narayan has a question because he has his hand up. So Sunil, you want to say something? You put your hand up.
Hare Krishna Guru, please accept my humble obeisances.
Wow, you don't look like Sunil. Krishna,
No, Sunil, he is actually preparing Krish for school, so I think it could be by mistake.
Okay, by mistake he did that. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, Maharaj.
Krishna Leela, you have a question?
I can ask, but it's not regarding this class, Maharaj. But we are doing offering for the lamp by public in Damodar month. And my question in my mind that we are getting everybody, like we did 200, more than 200 lamp offering by new people. But my question is that we are, because of their diet, we don't know what they ate and all that. Is it all right for them to offer? Like we won't have any.
Oh, of course. Yes, definitely. And by doing that devotional service, eventually they will become purified and change their diet and change their lifestyle. And because you're, as a devotee, are arranging it, it's a bona fide program, and they're being engaged in Krishna's service. Wonderful.
We give prasadam as well, Maharaj, and prasadam with offering lamp, and we thinking we'll put some archman for water for them to just wash the hand. That is good enough, right, Prabhuji? Just wanted to get clarification.
Yes, it's fine. It's fine for you to do that. We invite everybody to offer a lamp to Lord Damodar. We don't discriminate as to age or gender or religion. Like Prabhupada commented here in the Nectar Devotion, even there's people who are Muslims and who celebrate Janmashtami in India. It's wonderful. Everybody's getting some benefit. I mean, even if someone in the Muslim, who is a Muslim, chants haram, haram, because they're so shocked by something, then they're making spiritual advancement. So you're helping them. Okay?
So much, Maharaj. Thank you. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Okay, very good. So, who else wants to ask a question?
Gurudev,
Yes.
You were speaking earlier about Krishna is non-different from his name, his pastimes, and his paraphernalia, his entourage. So specifically his entourage, those are other living entities,
That's right.
and yet they're non-different from Krishna, and they're Krishna. So can you go into a little bit more depth
Okay.
as far as,
Yeah, let me explain. That's a Chintu Beta Beta Tattva again.
yeah,
Like, because they're non-different in the sense that they connect one to Krishna, they remind one of Krishna, they're always with Krishna, they're manifesting Krishna's mercy, but in another sense, they're different persons than Krishna. So it's like how Krishna is one and different from everything simultaneously. So, one sense, Krishna is one and different from all of his entourage, his paraphernalia, and everything like that. And it's also different too. Like Krishna's flute is a person. All these different flutes we're hearing about, like the Venu Murali, the Akarshane, Mohini, or whatever it is. These are all, excuse me, these are all persons, and so they're in one sense they're non-different from Krishna, in another sense they're different. They're not absolutely the same as Krishna, but by associating with them, you're getting Krishna's association. Like we say about the Vaishnava, Krishna say Tumar, Krishna dite par. Krishna is yours. You have the power to give him. So Krishna belongs to the Vaishnava, and the Vaishnava is bringing Krishna with him. But there's a difference. There's a difference in identity and a non-difference at the same time too. All right.
so if there's a difference in identity, what is so the difference is in identity, what is the non-difference in?
The non-difference is that Krishna is there. Whenever there's a devotee, Krishna is there. Not that Krishna is the devotee, but Krishna is there. Krishna is always with his devotee. The devotee manifests the spiritual energy. You understand? And Krishna is there. Just like when I was with Prabhupada, I could feel Krishna's presence. It's not that Prabhupada was Krishna, but Prabhupada was bringing Krishna. Another verse is Golokera Premadana Harinam Sankirtan. When a pure devotee is chanting, then Goloka Vrindavan manifests and Krishna manifests through his mouth. But it's one and different simultaneously. That's important to understand the difference.
Thank you, Gurudev.
That's why we have the difference between Alambana and Udipana. Udipana, in one sense, is the same as Krishna, but in another sense is different from Krishna. But an Alambana is completely the same in identity as Krishna. Okay, let someone else ask a question. Good question. Who else has a question of all you nice folks? Usually we have a lot of questions, but everybody's stumped.
I have a question to the Gurudev.
Yeah, Shruti Priya. Okay, what's the question?
Well, in regards to like remembrance of Krishna, in the Bhagavad Gita, it says that like our like intelligence gets covered like by like when we associate with the mode of passion, and that turns into lust.
Yeah.
And then in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it says that intelligence is in the mode of passion.
Material intelligence, yes.
Oh, okay. Material intelligence. Okay.
Yeah, there's spiritual intelligence. Spiritual intelligence is that which is fixed up in Krishna's instructions, and that's actually transcendental. But material intelligence means, now what does intelligence mean actually? It means how to plan materially, how to have happiness in the future. So you're planning for the future, and that's passion. When you're thinking right now how to pig out, that's ignorance. And when you're thinking had a pig out in the future that's passion.
Okay.
That's funny.
I have one more too, if that's
Yeah.
okay. It was in reference to
When you get to the
yesterday.
point of pigging out, then it's ignorance.
The contemplation, you can still get saved by spiritual intelligence and contemplation, though.
Contemplation of what?
Well, you said if you actually get to the point of pigging out, then it's ignorance, but you can still like redeem yourself even in the.
Yeah, if you pig out on prasadam.
So yesterday you were saying that Radha Damodar
There's
temple.
always hope. There's always hope.
Yeah.
100% of the time, there's hope.
Okay.
So what's the question?
Yesterday you were saying that Radha Damodar temple is Srila Prabhupada's
Eternal
eternal.
resident.
Yeah, could you explain that more or talk about that?
Well, that's what Prabhupada said. Prabhupada launched the whole Krishna conscious movement from the Radha Damodar temple. He was living there. He said, these are my eternal quarters. And Prabhupada instructed us to keep the quarters. Quarters doesn't mean part of a dollar. Quarters means where he was living. So Prabhupada instructed us to keep his quarters there nicely and do worship there and always maintain those quarters in the Radha Damodar temple. Because that's where Prabhupada planned out how to follow the instructions of Srila Rupa Goswami. There's actually stories that people who lived next to that temple, they would hear Prabhupada crying out at night in ecstasy to Rupa Goswami and to his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So that's, that was the launching pad. It's just like when you're talking about the launching pad for some rocket. In America, we have Cape Canaveral, which used to be Cape Kennedy. We have Cape Canaveral, from which all the rockets are launched to go into outer space. So Radha Damodar Temple is the launching pad for the whole Krishna consciousness movement, where Prabhupada actually fixed his mind on fulfilling the order of the spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Okay?
Okay, thank you, Srila Gurudev.
All righty. So there's time for another question or two. Anybody else? Well, not, we end early. Nobody else has a question. Nobody else has a question. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
I do.
Who's that? Oh.
The
Mother
ghost
Tosi.
from Halloween.
Mother
Um,
Tosi. Yeah. I
Okay,
can't
so
see your face.
so
Okay.
please send my obeisance. So anyways, so when like when we see that picture of Krishna and all the cowherd boys eating lunch and everything, and everyone thinks they're looking at Krishna. So how do we deal with having that desire to want to be Krishna?
Wait a second. You want to be Krishna when you see that picture?
No, but I might be asking for rhetorically. I mean, not. I mean, I might be.
Everyone
Might
wants
be.
to be Krishna when you see the picture of Krishna eating with the coward boys? Have you seen a psychiatrist lately? I mean, when I see a picture of Krishna eating with the coward boys, I just think, this is great. Let me sit down and eat with them. I don't think I want to be Krishna.
So from the time we're born, though, we're groomed to want to get all the attention. So that can like cross our minds, because that's why we came here in the first place, anyways.
Yeah, but I wouldn't want to sit down and be the center of. I couldn't eat properly if I was the center of all the coward boys. I would just want to grab my prasadam, eat in peace. Having everybody looking at me. I mean, that's kind of frightening. So when I look at that picture, I think, let me eat what they're eating, but I don't think I want to be the center at all. I know your question. Your question is, we have this whole propensity, Ishwara Hama Hombogi Siddho Hum Balabansuki, that I'm the center, I'm perfect, I'm powerful, I'm happy, like that. And so it's basically enviousness of Krishna, the position of God. So anyway, we've been trying it out for so many lifetimes in this material world. Hopefully we get frustrated after some time. What's the use? What's the use? It's just like that story Prabhupada told about the jackal who was posted as king of the forest because he had some blue paint on him. And as soon as the other jackals cried out, he cried out, and he got eaten as prasadam by the actual king, Lion King. That's a Walt Disney movie. So anyway, so we're that, when we try to be the center, it's like the jackal trying to imitate the lion. It's kind of stupid. But it takes some experience. That's why we are here in the material world, and after a while we cry out to Krishna and we say, Krishna, help. And Krishna sends Guru and tells you you're not the center. And then even in Krishna consciousness, sometimes we try to be the center. We try to be a big guru. We try to be a prominent person. We try to be, whatever. We want to, that's why Prabhupada used this expression, puffed up. Because we actually puff ourselves up. It's like that. Oh my God, can't use that example. Like there's some political leader who they made a big balloon of. Usually the balloon's in the UK, and they just puffed it up real big, just big fat balloon, and everyone's laughing at it. So that's us. So don't worry if you haven't experienced it yet. If you still want to be Krishna in the middle of all the coward boys, after all these years, you got trouble. You got big trouble. Okay. Any other
Thank
like
you.
sane questions here?
Well,
Does that anybody want to be Krishna dancing with all the gopis, or Krishna manifesting all the universes from his body, or Krishna killing the demons? I don't think so. I just want to be a devotee of Krishna. It's a lot more pleasant than being Krishna. I remember there was one famous boxer, and this is not a political statement, and I think he was a #1 boxer for a long time. And he would always say after a boxing match, I am the greatest. And then he got old, and the devotees ran into him in the airport when they were trying to distribute some books. And he basically, he had been punched so many times, he had brain damage, he could hardly even speak anymore without slurring his words. So
yeah, I
that's a
gave
lesson we all
Muhammad
have.
Ali.
Yeah, don't mention his name. I know who it is. Don't mention his name. We don't like to mention people's names. So everybody has their time in the sun. And then after that, they're finished. So here's another question. So can we worship Krishna's paraphernalia as much as the deity form of the Lord? That was a question I just got. Yes. We can worship Krishna's paraphernalia as long as you remember it's Krishna's paraphernalia. If I take Krishna's deity plate and I start to eat out of it, then that's not really bona fide. But if I see it as connected to Krishna, yeah, sure. Twidiyanam Samarchanam. Actually, a lot of Krishna's paraphernalia is a manifestation of Lord Balaram. So we can do that. Okay, I think we will end now. Thank you very much. And tomorrow we'll go on to a very exciting chapter because we're going to talk about as I mentioned before, Anubhava. Remember, we were talking about the different bhavas. Just to reiterate, vibhava means that which stimulates you in ecstatic love. Anubhava is what you do about it voluntarily after you've been stimulated. So that's the next topic in the Nectar of Devotion. We're going to hear about some of the Anubhavas. Things like foaming at the mouth, jumping up and down in ecstasy. All these things will make you completely ecstatic. Okay. On that happy note, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.